All right, let's talk about it. Is another stimulus check actually coming in 2025? You've probably seen the headlines, right? All this talk about a Trump stimulus or a tariff dividend. But what's actually true? And what's just a rumor? In this explainer, we are going to cut right through all that noise and separate the proposal from the reality. So let's get right to that big number that's floating around, $2,000. Is a $2,000 stimulus check really coming in 2025? I mean, that's the question on everyone's mind. You see $2,000 tariff dividend check, or is Trump giving out $2,000 everywhere you look? That number is definitely grabbing all the attention. So, is a payment like that actually in the works? Let's dig in. Okay, but before we dive into this one specific proposal, it's actually really helpful to take a quick step back. Let's look at the two main ways the government even does this kind of thing, how they respond when the economy slows down. It really all comes down to how they get money into people's hands. And trust me, the two methods are totally different. So first up, you've got something called discretionary fiscal policy. Now that sounds super technical, but just think of it as the government's emergency toolkit. These are special one-time actions the Congress actually has to vote on and pass into law to deal with a very specific crisis. And the perfect example? You guessed it, those economic impact payments from the pandemic. Those stimulus checks didn't just happen automatically. They were a direct response to a crazy, unprecedented situation. Now, the other tool is pretty much the complete opposite. It's called automatic stabilizers. These are the programs that are always on, just kind of running in the background. We're talking about things like unemployment insurance or SNAP. They're designed to just automatically kick in and help out when the economy gets tough. No new laws needed. And this difference is absolutely crucial because the stimulus check proposal we're talking about for 2025, it falls squarely into that first category. It would have to be a brand new one-time law passed by Congress. Okay, so with that background, let's get specific. Where is all this talk about tariff checks and a Trump stimulus actually coming from? Well, it turns out it all points back to one single piece of proposed legislation. This is the plan that wants to fund these payments directly from new tariffs. And it has a name. The proposal is officially called the American Worker Rebate Act. It's a real 14-page bill that lays out this whole plan. Take the money that comes in from tariffs, taxes on imported goods, and send it out as direct payments to American families. So when you hear tariff rebate check, this is what they're talking about. It's not just some random idea, it's an actual bill that's been formally proposed. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. The funding. This is what makes this whole plan so different from what we've seen before. Past stimulus checks, they were paid for out of the general Treasury. But this money would come exclusively from new tariffs, specifically any collected after January 20th, 2025. It would create this direct pipeline from taxes on imports straight into people's bank accounts. It's a totally different way of thinking about economic relief. All right, so let's play this out. If this act actually became law, what would it look like? How would it really work? Who would get a check? And how much are we talking about? Let's break down the dollars and the details straight from the proposal itself. So the starting point in the proposal is $600. That's $600 for each eligible adult and for each qualifying child. But, and this is a really key detail, that's the floor, not the ceiling. The idea is that if the money coming in from tariffs is higher than expected, that $600 payment could actually go up. But it's not for everybody. The payments would be targeted based on income. So if you're a single tax filer, that payment starts to get smaller once your income goes above $75,000. And as you'd probably expect, for married couples who file their taxes together, that income limit is doubled. The phase-out for them would start once their combined income hits $150,000. So you're probably wondering, how fast does it shrink? Well, the way it's written, for every single dollar you earn above those income limits, the rebate check would go down by 5 cents. It's a pretty gradual phase out, and the whole point is to make sure the biggest chunk of the relief goes to lower and middle income families. The bill is also super clear about who would not get a payment. And a lot of this will probably sound familiar if you remember the last round of stimulus. We're talking non-resident aliens, anyone who's claimed as a dependent on someone else's taxes, and then estates and trusts. You'd also need a valid Social Security number to qualify, although they did write in a specific exception for military families where one spouse might not have one. Okay, so we've just walked through all the ins and outs of the proposal. But now we have to make the most important turn in this whole conversation. We need to shift from what's being proposed to what is actually happening today, right now. So what's the official word from the IRS? And here it is, This is the reality check, folks. The Economic Times, reporting on official announcements from the IRS, could not be more clear. As of right now, there are no government relief payments, no stimulus checks, nothing being sent out for the rest of 2025. And there are none planned for 2026 either. That American Worker Rebate Act we just talked about, it's still just a proposal. It is not the law. And just to put an even finer point on it, the IRS has also confirmed that the last official federal stimulus program, the Recovery Rebate Credit from back in the pandemic days, that's officially over. The final deadline to claim any money from that program was back on April 15th, 2025. So that chapter is completely closed. Now, this huge gap between all the online rumors and the actual reality, well, it creates the perfect storm for scammers. It's exactly what they look for. So let's talk about maybe the most important thing you can take away from this, how to keep yourself safe and where to get the real facts. Okay, just remember these really simple rules. First, the IRS is not going to just call, text, or DM you out of the blue. It's just not how they operate. Second, and this is huge, a real government agency will never ask you to pay a processing fee to get your own money. If you see that, it's a scam. Guaranteed. And of course, never ever click on unsolicited links promising you a payment, and don't give out your bank info in an email or text. Scammers absolutely love to take advantage of this kind of confusion. So here's your action plan for staying informed. You have to ignore the social media posts, ignore the random texts, ignore all those clickbait headlines. It's just noise. If, and that's a big if, a new federal payment ever gets approved, the very first place it will be announced is on the official IRS website. That's it. Bookmark it. IRS.gov. That is the one and only source of truth. And all of this really leaves us with a pretty interesting question to think about, right? It gets to the heart of a huge debate in economic policy. When we think about economic relief in the future, what's actually more important to you? Is it the final dollar amount you might get in a check? Or is it the way that money is funded? Even if that way is new, and maybe even a little controversial. It's definitely something to chew on.